Great. No? Okay. You're good. Okay. Welcome everyone to the first meeting of 2023, January 17th meeting. And this meeting is live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound website at www.parrysound.ca. And at this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Are there any additions to the agenda? I'm going to ask that we move item 10.3.1 up. And which I think would be good. Is there any other additions or no? Okay. May I have a mover and seconder then for the agenda? Councillor Keith, Councillor Bileski, that the council agenda for January 17th, 2023 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? No? Okay. Minutes, mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Ashford, Councillor McCann, the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 20th, 2022, and special meeting held December 22, 2022 be approved as circulated. Any comments, questions on that agenda or those minutes? No? All in favor then? And that's carried. Thank you. All right. I've got this note of public meeting. Yep, I can wait 1 minute. Okay. Okay. So, there, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to now take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed consent application for a lot addition under section 53 of the Planning Act. May I have a mover and seconder that we adjourn the regular meeting? Councillor Borneman and Councillor McDonald. That we now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? That's carried. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of consent application B23-01 for Hassel Holdings Corporation?
Yes, Your Worship, and I would just make note that what you read at the beginning, as far as this being a consent application for lot addition, it is not a lot addition, it's for an easement. Notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 60 meters and posted on the property, and notice is therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Mr. Rand, can you explain the purpose of the proposed consent application?
Council may recall that application B22-15 was approved on December 6th of last year, and staff would note that the application was processed in error as the application was submitted as an easement, but processed as a lot addition. The error was caught after the approval, and therefore an additional application was created. And staff are recommending that as part of council's decision on tonight's application, that the previous decision be revoked. The subject lands are located at 37 Joseph Street. The application was submitted in order to facilitate an easement, which would recognize an existing driveway encroachment. Staff would note that the application conforms to the intent of the town's official plan and the general intent of the town zoning bylaw. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of decision, the council, the corporation, the town of Parry Sound in respect to proposed consent does not make a written submission to the council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. And at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application or consent? I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this consent? Nope. Okay. So does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed application for consent? I'll ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed application for consent? Seeing no one, Mr. Rand, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
No agency correspondence has been received as a result of the public notice. I would note that we previously received correspondence from neighboring property owner Laura Tripp, and staff were in touch with Ms. Tripp prior to recirculation of this application, and it was asked that her previous comments stand. I will summarize her comments as follows. She indicated that the photo provided by the town through the mail with the purpose of informing neighbors of the location of the land in question relative to the abutting properties is inaccurate and therefore unintentionally misleading and leaves us with questions. It is reasonable to request clarity and accurate information before proceeding. I am requesting that a member of the town staff come to my property and physically show us where they believe this land to be severed is, to be informed of the source of the photo and image which it should be drawn properly with the lines, to be informed of the source of the photo and image which was mailed to us, to await a survey confirmation of property lines. I believe it is reasonable to ask that council delay decision on the matter until an independent survey is obtained which abuts the property lines in question. And in response to these comments, staff would note that the applicant has provided confirmation of the location of the existing iron bar located on the driveway. And this confirmation was consistent with staff site inspection of the property, as well as the submitted drawing. This, combined with the fact that the property will no longer be conveyed as a result of this application, staff are not recommending that additional conditions be put in place to locate the existing survey marker in relation to the existing driveway. And no other correspondence was received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I need a mover and seconder to close this meeting. Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. That the public meeting be adjourned. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, on with the regular agenda. Questions of staff? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. Is Mr. Cairns there or the CAO? Somebody can answer a question for me in respect to the arena, Bobby Orr Community Center. Is Mr. Cairns there?
Mr.
Oh,
Harris is
okay,
right here.
Mr. Harris, sure, certainly. Thank you. Mr. Harris, what I'm wondering about is, I understand the Bobby Orr Community Center, there had to be an evacuation for a short period of time. And I'm just wondering if you could expand on that and if there's a way that we can be proactive. So perhaps something like that situation doesn't occur again. Could you further explain, please?
Through the mayor to Councillor Keith, yes, there was a gas, the smell of gas and odor of gas, and from one of the HVAC systems, as I understand. And accordingly, the building was evacuated and closed. The fire prevention officer was called down to help investigate. It was isolated and repaired, and the facility was open the next morning. We do have gas monitoring facilities as well as regular inspections. I think the fact that this was detected quickly is good news for staff and the public, and it was quickly dealt with.
Yes, Councillor Keith.
Thank you. Just to expand, so how long was the, say, community center not able to be in operation for the public?
Through the mayor, I believe it was just Friday evening. It was open the next morning.
And my understanding is it had something to do with one of the HVAC units and that Ms. McNamara was successful in an application through a Trillium grant to replace all of the HVAC units. So they'll all be brand new, and this hopefully should never happen again.
Great, that's the proactive stuff I'd like to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Borneman.
I'm going to pester Mr. Harris, seeing as Mr. Cairns isn't here tonight as well. I have had a number of seniors contact me with respect to the potential of the town using something called a snow gate so as not to fill driveways in. I don't know whether that's something that could be looked into or not. And the other query was if there's not some, I recognize that the snowmobile club does the maintenance on the fitness trail through the winter months, but with the lack of ice and snow, the fitness trails somewhere between a path and a skating rink and kind of dangerous for a lot of folks these days. And they're wondering if there's something that we might be able to do to break that crust up a little bit, to smooth it out, so as folks aren't slipping and sliding so much.
Through the mayor to Council Borneman, we're not going to let Mike have any Tuesdays off from now on, but in terms of the snow gate, a municipality that I worked in a number of years ago cleaned the windrows in every driveway in the municipality. It was extremely costly, and we were one of the only municipalities that did it. One of the challenges, as I recall, if the driveways are close together, then where do you put the snow? It's one thing not to drop it in one person's driveway, but if you've only got a few feet between the next driveway or sidewalk to the home, the snow's got to go somewhere. So it's really challenging. I certainly will pass this on to Mr. Kearns, and he certainly at a minimum provide some comments at the next council meeting regarding snow gates. In terms of Snowmobile Club, again, I'll mention that to Mr. Kearns to see if he has any thoughts. I think on Thursday, Friday, we're expecting a lot more snow, and that may solve the problem, at least temporarily.
Any further questions? Councillor Ashford?
I think we all noticed the amount of snow that came down over Christmas, and we know our staff was missing Christmas while we were enjoying ours. And to the point where there was a story shared with me that the staff actually responded to an emergency to help get ambulances out of the hospital down the highway to where they needed to be to take care of the people who were in an accident. And so my question is there anything that we can comment on that? And then also, have the staff been properly appreciated for their hard work over Christmas?
Chief Thompson?
I was going to make a couple of comments. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Just through the chair, a couple of things. Mr. Kearns did bring pizzas and refreshments out to the staff during the time, as you mentioned. They were a lot of extra hours when they probably prefer to be home with their families around that time of year, but we appreciate their service. There were different individuals out there outside of Public Works that also stepped up to the plate. Our Public Works trucks had difficulty accessing the gas pumps at the Shell station, and another person came by with a plow and opened them up for us. So everybody was pitching in. I'll let Dave speak to the issue about the ambulance and the plowing that the Public Works staff did.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there were numerous incidents, of course, over the Christmas holidays where private and public contractors stepped up to bat and made sure that things happened I would like to just relay one instance where I received a call from the dispatch center advising us that they needed to get an air ambulance into the hospital ASAP, and their private contractor was unable to break open the helipad at the hospital. I quickly contacted Mr. Kearns, and he immediately had his staff go up to the hospital, clear off the hospital's helipad so that an air ambulance could get in. I have since spoken to hospital senior staff and and they're very appreciative of that entire incident. For one example of how the entire community came together to make things happen when they needed to happen, to take care of the most vulnerable in the population and what was happening to them over the Christmas holidays.
Very good. It's great when people can pull together to make something happen, you know, in a good way. Any other questions of staff? No? Okay, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Issue worship, we have 3 letters of correspondence. The first is from Trina Papalia, and Miss Papalia resides at the location where in Kristen Heights, where there was a bear attacked a chicken coop that she owned. And although her name wasn't mentioned in the December 6th deputation on this matter, because the exact address was mentioned, she was identified. And so she has written to the town expressing concerns about that identification because of some of the very negative comments that she received. And she further wished to correct some things that she felt were incorrectly conveyed at the December 6th deputation on the matter of chicken coops, and in particular the August 31st incident where there was a bear at this location that killed chickens and the bear was subsequently shot. So I will read specifically a couple items. Ms. Papalia says that although the deputation painted a picture of an unsafe and irresponsible discharging of a firearm, this couldn't be further from the truth. The bear was dispatched in a carefully calculated manner with the utmost consideration given to safety. The body was appropriately disposed of immediately, and the whole site was cleaned up within a half hour. These events happened around 11 p.m., not between 8 or 9 p.m., as was stated in the deputation. Ms. Papalia indicates that it is not only, she doesn't believe it's only chicken coops or food that is out that has attracted bears. There are a number of reasons why bears and other wildlife are in the community looking for food. So she identifies some of those reasons. With respect to ducks, there was a report that ducks were now at the coop. She indicates that on an emergency basis, she permitted a friend to house ducks for 2 weeks there, but they are no longer there. That was back in mid-October, and at this point, there's nothing there at the coop. So those were corrections that Ms. Papalia wished to provide to council. The next item of correspondence is from Liam Close. It's an email sent to Mayor and Council proposing a 4-way stop at the Rosetta, James and William Street intersection. So it's a very short email, just simply indicating that it seems unsafe without that stop. This has been also referred to our Public Works Director. And the last item is from the Parry Sound Public Schools School Advisory Council, requesting that a location be made at the McFarland Street transfer station for bottle collection as a fundraising for the Parry Sound Public School. This item has been referred to the Director of Public Works as well. There may be a response as that may be in use for another purpose at this time, but the Director will be responding on that item. And those are the items.
All right, thank you. Next we have deputations, and the first one is from the Chamber of Commerce regarding a budget request. So welcome. Come forward to the table and just turn on the microphone there. And if you do have a written presentation, it would be great if we had a copy of it. at some point.
I did receive.
Oh, you
a copy
did?
that was part of the
Okay.
difference.
Okay, all right.
Give us circulated, yes.
Okay,
Yes, great, thank you.
okay.
Okay. Well, hello, Parry Sound Town Mayor and Council. I appreciate you allowing me some time on your agenda tonight to talk about or to make a request. My name is Daryl Glimpse and I'm on the board of directors with the Parry Sound Chamber of Commerce. The Parry Sound Chamber of Commerce has been in operation since 1897. And while I can't speak to what the presence of the chamber was 125 years ago, I am excited to announce that in 2023, the chamber is growing steadily and adding new members on a regular basis. Our membership has grown 25% over the last year and continues to show consistent growth even during the slower season. This growth has been nurtured by two great frontline staff we have in the office at the chamber. The first being our executive director, Chris McDonald, who I think some of you might know, and whose previous entrepreneurship in the community has built a strong relationship with local businesses and organizations. The second in our office is Catherine Lapierre, who's the manager of membership services, and her social media and marketing expertise has been invaluable and a huge asset to our renewed and rejuvenated presence in the business community. Another critical factor, though, to this growth has been the support offered by the area municipalities as we as a chamber have been working through some financial challenges from past years. So as we move into 2023, I'm pleased to outline some of our strategic plans for continued growth and to build a stronger organization for our membership. So I'm going to talk about 5 strategic objectives that we're focused on. So number one is our member meetings. We will be reestablishing monthly meetings of our members to provide networking and professional development. These meetings include business after hours, business over breakfast, lunch and learns, and historically have been successful and very well attended. So what we hope to do is bring these sessions back with guest speakers and valuable information for our members. The second thing is a website redevelopment. We plan to update and develop a new website into a more user-friendly and dynamic experience. This will also include a redevelopment of the back end where our staff can actually manage the content and make edits themselves versus relying on a third party to do so. And we envision building a more comprehensive calendar of events that will include member and non-member of community events. The third item is focused on recognition, and we will recognize and promote the achievements of our members. We're going to have a shift in focus of recognition awards to include milestones of businesses, new business openings, moves, achievements, and ownership changes. And we will be sending out member certificates for new and existing businesses. The fourth area is onboarding packages for our new board members. We will be creating a thorough onboarding package outlining expectations and duties of our board of directors. And this will build a strong leadership committee and help with new board members understand their roles when joining the board. And finally, and not least, is number 5, the customer satisfaction. We're going to create and distribute a customer satisfaction survey to see what our members want and what they're interested in and what their needs are from our organization. This survey will include additional questions covering members' feedback on what is important to them, and will be open to public input as well. This will help us with valuable information on what is important to our members and will give us good information for the coming year. So with this plan, we feel we put ourselves in a good position to remain relevant and be strong resource for our new and existing businesses. So the ask is, as you prepare to set your 2023 budget, we ask that you consider a financial contribution once again to our nonprofit organization to help us continue to build a strong business community and strong leadership service for our members. This contribution, we feel, will help continue to strengthen and grow our community in 2023. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions at all? Nope, we're good. Thank you. Your timing was good too. All right, our next deputation is Tom Lundy, who I believe is online, Selena Martins and Rolanda Fraser for the public library. Welcome.
Hello,
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Mayor McGarvey and council. I'm sorry, I can't be there, but I'm in a warmer climate.
Yeah, I know. I saw you Thursday night at the DSAB in your short sleeve shirt.
I got a long sleeve tonight, Mayor
You got
McGarvey.
long sleeves tonight. Okay, is it a little cooler there right now?
It is. It's dropped down to about 22.
Uh,
Anyway, from this distance, first of all, I'd like to be there because I always enjoy coming to visit with Parry Sound Council, and certainly I will make a visit to meet. I know you have a number of new councilors, so I think my role right now would be just to introduce our team that's there today. Selena Martins, our newly appointed CEO. She's accompanied by Rolla Fraser, who joined us in late November, and I believe Karen Walker is there.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and with that, I think because of the way we're trying to communicate, I'd rather turn it over to my team that's on site.
okay, just want to press the button on the intercom there. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for having us here tonight. We are very happy to be here to discuss the Parry Sound Public Library's 2021-2022 annual report and looking forward to our 2023 budget. So to start things off, we have a brief video just summarizing our 2021-2022 annual report. You also have the print copy of this information was included in the council packages. So if there's any sort of facts and figures that go by in this video, you can always refer back to them in the print copy of the report. The library So that was our report catching you up on 2021, 2022. And now we're going to jump ahead into our 2023 proposed library budget. So I know that you have the slides of this available in your packages, so I'm not going to go through and read every single word on them, but I am just going to elaborate on a couple of points. So our mission statement at the library is all about enriching the quality of life in the town of Parry Sound and our contracting municipalities. We're not just a place for books, although we do have our dedicated patrons who come in every week and take out a big stack of them. But we're also a place where you come in when you need help setting up your tablet, or if you have a Zoom meeting, but your Wi-Fi isn't set up and you need a place to run in and just use our Wi-Fi and our new mute boxes to have your meeting. Or you come in with your children or your grandchildren so they can color or play with Legos. So we offer so much. And
Just curious.
okay, and so we just also want to add that we have been studying the town of Parry Sound strategic plan for the 2020s. And we're really excited because we feel that the public library really dovetails and complements everything that the town is going to do with the strategic plan. The Parry Sound Public Library, we really fit well in with your three main priorities of quality of life and economic growth and organizational excellence. So here on this slide, you can see that we are all about enriching the quality of life, and you see that we literally check off many of the boxes from your own strategic plan. So as I said, we're all about recreational opportunities. We're inclusive and welcoming to everyone in the community, and we're all about building that sense of community pride and well-being. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rolla to speak to you briefly about the economic impact of library.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to make sure that I try and stay within the time frame, so I'm going to keep this short. We actually do have 7 key areas that we are looking at as your public library in terms of where we're growing, where we see needs and gaps that need to be filled as a community. And all of these pieces are at play, not specifically for the individual community member, but like if we can bolster and support our individual community members, then that works to better us all as a community going forward. So my background is in education, so I actually only took one of these. So I went directly to literacy because that speaks to my heart. I was in education for 20 years before joining the public library. So we do know that there are significant impacts for low literacy rates in our communities, not specifically related to the individual that may be struggling with their literacy skills, but as a community. We also know that literacy skills have direct links to crime, unemployment, medical and mental wellness, right? Life expectancy. Literacy really does play a critical role in all of these really vitally important things that we ought to, as a community, as a library, and all of us together, make sure that we are able to support as best as we can. The Ontario Human Rights Commission did release the Right to Read executive summary and report in 2022. It does very specifically focus on the Ministry of Education and the roles that schools play, particularly with early intervention, but we also know that that's not always what happens. We know that there are gaps to be filled. We know that we have people that come into our communities that are going to need those supports regardless of their age. So just because we may have missed that early literacy window, that does not mean that that person or those people are not able to get assistance with their literacy. And also, again, looking at an equity lens, and I know that the town is very concerned with inclusivity and equity lenses. It behooves us to make sure that we're providing supports in these ways that are not financially overwhelming. And this is where the library plays a really key role. So where we can close the gap, we offer early literacy programming, of course. Our children's library is beautiful, but we also offer adult literacy programming. We offer tutoring. We offer supports for English language learners. So people that have moved here and perhaps English isn't their first language and they would like to improve their skills there. we are able to have people come in and print their resumes, and we can help them do that and help them secure employment when they're here, even if English isn't their first language. And again, like just the things that we often take for granted are the things that I want to make sure that we understand and take a perspective of from a library and an equity standpoint. So like, for instance, like if you went to the doctor and they, I don't know, said that perhaps you needed a little less salt in your diet, or like, God forbid, they said you can't have cheese anymore or something. You know, ultimately, I would hop on my phone, on my device. I would try and find some diet. I would try and find some recipes. If I didn't have a device, if I didn't have internet access, if I couldn't print my recipes, and you know, if I couldn't hop downtown to Barely Used Books or go and see Charlotte at Parry Sound Books and order myself a cookbook. And all of these things all hinge on the fact that maybe I may not have access at all. I may not have the literacy skills to understand what my doctor has told me, or to read my prescription, or any of these things. So when I say that this is very key and the library closes gaps here, I genuinely mean that wholeheartedly. So that's my heartfelt pitch for literacy.
And now we come to the financial slide. So this is not the full ask. You do have a copy of the detailed 2023 library budget included in your packages, which breaks everything down in detail. So the overall ask is 300,000, and this slide just focuses on the portion of that which is above the normal ask that the library has asked for in the past. So it is a bit of an increase. And I do also just want to state that we do have 3 contracting municipalities who do contribute to the library, and we will be visiting each of them over this week and next week. And we have also asked them for an increase in their asks to help us cover the ongoing operational costs of the library. So this is just what we are asking from Parry Sound, and it's a combination of operating and capital costs. So the first line item refers to books, and just a little bit of quick background. For the last few years, the library has been taking the entirety of the book budget out of the one investment portfolio, which we have an investment portfolio through the town of Parry Sound. But we feel that rather than draining that investment by continually taking everything from it each year, it would be better for everyone if we took just a portion for books. And that's why we are asking the town for a portion towards books as well, so that we're not depleting the investment. The next item is furnaces. So the library is heated by 3 rooftop units, which were installed way back in the summer of 2000. Just some historical information. They were originally paid for and installed by the town of Parry Sound, not the library board. We are planning to cover the bulk of the cost for the furnaces. We found a really excellent grant through Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Commission, which we're in the process of completing. And it will, if we're successful, cover the bulk of the cost. The library does also have a small savings of capital reserves, which we will also contribute towards. And then that just leaves a bit left over that we're asking for the town's contribution. Now, you will notice if you look at the detailed budget included in your package that we will have a bit of a surplus left over from 2022 due to some unexpected staffing changeover that happened that year. And that amount we would like to earmark for the furnaces, so that in the event that we're not successful with the grant, we don't need to come back and ask the town to cover the whole thing. We'll have that money there set aside. And then if we are successful and everything works out, our plan for that money would then be to set it aside for capital with regard specifically to accessibility, because as we all know, 2025 is coming up and the library definitely has areas that need to be improved in terms of accessibility. So that is that money. And then the last few items relate to payroll expenses. The rules with OMERS have changed, so non-full-time staff are now included, which is wonderful, but we need to make a bit of an adjustment there as well. Pay equity We just need to make sure that all of our job descriptions are current and that they are accurate and that everybody is being paid accurately for their work. So that's the breakdown on the amount that's above what we would normally have requested from the town. So that is our presentation. I will just add that Rolla and I do plan to come back to council throughout the year at a few different points. We don't want the only time you see us to be during budget time. So we do plan to come back throughout the year and update you periodically on our programs and our events and everything that's happening at the library. Just close out of that so they can see that. That is the end. So if you have any questions, we would be happy to talk about it.
So before I go to questions, I want to say that I certainly enjoy your videos and the ones you've had before. They're cute, they're entertaining, and they're informative. So
Thank
you've captured 3 areas, and I think maybe what you could do is actually maybe put together some videos for some other people to make organizations to make a little extra money as well, because they're very well done. Thank you. Any questions from council? Oh, Councillor Ashford.
I also just wanted to mention, when I was a little kid, my mom said we're going to the library. I wasn't super happy, but my girls, they cheer. So I wanted to thank you guys so much because it's a wonderful place. My question is just around the pay equity. Is it part of a staff retention plan as well?
Yes, so the last few years, the library started into pay equity review, which was long overdue at that point. And it is an ongoing process and especially as we have staff changeover and we are always fine tuning everyone's job roles. And it's just really important to us that the job descriptions are kept up to date and that everything is approved through a consultant so that we know that we're doing everything legally responsible and that we're correct.
Through your worship. Are we at risk of losing anyone and perhaps the videos ceasing?
I would say no, not at the present. Of course, no one can predict the future, but I think everybody genuinely loves working at the library.
Sitting right here. I'm the newest member. I'm sitting right here. I'd like to stay.
Councillor Keith, Tom Lundy's got his hand up here. So yes, Tom.
If I could, I would just add to that. The pay equity is provincially legislated, and no, I don't believe we have any issue of losing any of our dedicated and creative and enthusiastic staff. They're a great bunch, both the full-time and the part-time people, and they all work together to put these videos together.
That's good. Thank you, Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments that I'd like to make, and one parallels some of what Councillor Ashford has said tonight. And it seems to me over the years, the library and its role certainly has changed, and it certainly is I find a much more inviting place. And frankly, I find the staff at the Parry Sound Library is like a microcosm of our community. I think one of the things that got maybe kind of glossed over a little bit, but that is really important, is I think there's many people, as what I've observed, have come into the library and can that sometimes be lost souls. And the library is the only place that I can see easily welcomes them, and they tell their woes. And I find that having been there different times in hearing the situations, that staff take on more roles and frankly just working at the library and trying to do a referral or else trying to be there to hear, to be that sounding board. So I think that the importance of the library sometimes really gets missed. It's a service that we're providing, you folks at the library are providing in a really positive aspect. And I also appreciated in this presentation the strategic plan and how the library's goals are paralleling the town's strategic plan. And I think that's really important to sitting on council to be able to hear that. So the library isn't going one way and we're trying to go the other. So I thank you for that presentation.
Oh, thank you so much, Bonnie. That was really beautifully said. And yes, we library staff at all levels, we're always there to help everyone in the community, and we do our best to be as welcoming and inclusive as we possibly can.
Okay. Any further questions? Councilor McDonald.
So, Your Worship, the Great Northern Ontario Roadshow that took place in September, were you guys instrumental in having that happen in Market Square as well? It was a great event that went on for a couple of days, and I think all the kids and families that attended really enjoyed it. So I'd love to see more of that kind of interactive stuff happening even outside. It was great.
Yes, we definitely had a presence there. We did have a booth set up, and we had staff out there playing games with the children and offering education about the library and things like that. And we've also done a few other outdoor events. We did a big movie night around Halloween, where we showed a film outside on a inflatable projector, and it was a huge turnout for that as well. We had over 100 people show up. So we're definitely looking into the future, doing more outdoor events, trying to bring in as many people as we can.
Yeah, story time with Santa apparently had to have 2 readings.
That's right.
There were that many kids. Anyway, wonderful. I don't see any more questions right at the moment, so thank you very much for your presentation, and it'll be brought forward during the budget process.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Stay warm.
I'll try, Mayor McGarvey. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Okay, so. Reports. We're going to start with Councilor McDonald tonight.
So it's been a busy few weeks. On December the 14th, I attended the DBA Downtown Business Association Annual General Meeting. It was very well attended and great to see the progress happening in the downtown area, especially with the filling in of many of the empty storefronts, including the Shrubs and Shrews, Oak Crest Out with Wine, the Wing House, which will be opening in March, and a few others set to be revealed in the coming weeks. On January the 5th, I attended the Industrial Park Board meeting along with fellow councillors Borneman and Ashford. They're facing some challenges updating their waterworks treatment system. They've had great success over this past year in being a location for septic waste disposal. It's been quite lucrative, and they found also success in sale of bulk water to the highway construction crews and Shawniga First Nations. They currently have companies looking to open up shop here in the near future, and improvements in services and street lighting are in the works to make things more attractive. On January 11th, they attended the first regular board meeting of the Downtown Business Association. There was a little bit of concern expressed over the closing off of the downtown streets for events. The DBA would like to see a little bit more communication and consulting possibly before streets are closed off, especially during busy summer months and weekends. Christmas decorations and light poles suffered a fair bit of damage during the bad storms, and several banners and flags had been completely destroyed. But there's some great plans to continue beautification, including shade structure over the current seating area across from the movie theater, and more development of green space and gardens and planters. There's also talk of revamping the visitor center near the public washrooms, co-hosting a brainstorming session with the Chamber of Commerce to address the strategies of tapping into the cruise ship industry and their visitors at the end of February. On January the 12th, I attended the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame exhibit ad hoc committee meeting. A lot has happened over the past 3 to 4 weeks there. All the old exhibits have been removed. Painting has begun. Epoxy floor and new cabinetry is coming.
And new lighting to replace the bar lighting is happening as well. Timeline for them to open is in the spring, soft opening, with the grand opening sometime in July. July 18th will actually mark the 20th year anniversary of the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame, if you can believe that. They're currently looking for exhibit sponsors. So if anyone knows of business associations or organizations that would like to become a sponsor, let me know and I can provide information on that, or I can pass it on to Caitlin. Also had the recent opportunity to tour Thunder Creek home developments and see firsthand the great work Hall Construction is doing, addressing the housing demands and plans for future developments. They have built around 30 homes, which are all currently occupied. 16 more are in the works, and should be complete by the spring. So I was very impressed at the community they're building up in that area and look forward to seeing more of it once it's fully complete. That's the end of my report.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've attended a number of meetings on various topics with the Belvedere Heights Board. The 21st of December, the 11th and the 16th of January. We're looking into the possibilities of repurchasing 2 additional units and trying to develop a template to ensure that we're treating all of those folks as fairly as is possible. On the 5th, Councillor McDonald mentioned the Industrial Park Board meeting. I'd only add that you know, the town's facing similar prospects of replacing SCADA systems in our water and wastewater work plants and systems because of the untimely death of our previous contractor. And the park board is also investigating updating aeration systems through the lagoon system up there. On the 10th, I attended a meeting at the airport commission. There were some slowdowns through the Christmas season as were expected from runway construction, where we seem to be back on track after the major snowstorm. We're trying to dial in the closure dates as best we're able for the businesses that are operating there. That will be a challenge for all. And in closing, I want to express my condolences to former Councillor Bagan's family. Cliff was a friend and a mentor. He had a great memory about all things Parry Sound and a better sense of humor. He'll be missed in our community. And finally, the past couple of days, I've seen something about Snowfest Parry Sound, February 17th to 20th, Family Day weekend. People who are interested, I'd suggest that they check the website or contact Jamie at the BOCC for further information for anyone looking to participate. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and public. This is a personal note. When it comes to our health, it can be very easy to take for granted the healthcare services that we are privileged to have in our area. Sometimes it takes an extraordinary event to really appreciate the valuable services of the West Parry Sound District. In the early hours of Christmas Eve day, my wife and I both came down with food poisoning, and although she suffered with the usual symptoms, we felt it was best that I had to emerge, where I slept there for 12 hours, fed gravel and such. There couldn't have been a worse night for the paramedics to be out. They had to dig through the snow. If you'll recall, there was a significant snow event. And so getting the stretcher into the building, getting it back out required some manual labor with a snow shovel. I just want to thank all the people in Emerge, the paramedics, the staff. They were all terrific, professional, very caring and helpful. And when I returned home later that day, I thought, you know, what if we didn't have a full-time healthcare system, paramedics, if the roads weren't passable? You know what, I hate to think about it, but we're very fortunate and very blessed to have these services to look after our health in a time of need. So a big thank you to everyone involved. And that kind of segues into my next note, just adding a personal note of appreciation and gratitude to our Public Works Department for working above and beyond the call of duty in clearing all of the snow, the white stuff. I think we all got more white than we dreamed of for a white Christmas, and one that will go down in the memory books. And thanks to the staff for getting out there. You know, we feel pretty vulnerable when you can't get your car out of the driveway, head out for groceries or medical appointments or what have you. So thank you to the staff there. Sunday afternoon, January 8th, my wife and I attended the Mayor's Levy at the Bobby Orr Community Center. Wonderful to attend after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. Certainly at the event, we looked at the difficulties of the pandemic and also at the accomplishments of 2022. And we heard how 2023 is shaping out to be a very promising, busy, progressive year. And coming into 2023, we already have seen growth in our industry, commercial, business, residential development, and in our population. Want to congratulate, if I get this right here now, Ellen Kunica, I'm sorry, on receiving the Order of Parry Sound for 2022. I too would like to express my condolences to the family of Cliff Bagan. Cliff passed away. He was 91 years old on Saturday, the 7th of January. He is considered one of our town fathers, and as Councillor Borneman just mentioned, his memory was second to none. I had an opportunity to get to know Cliff a little bit more when working on the Parry Sound Victory School commemorative project. Cliff had a lot of pride in Victory School and a lot of stories to share with us. And I think we're very fortunate that we have a video with these interviews with Cliff that will be preserved for some time to come. You can find them in the library and you can find them at the museum as well. So to Cliff's family, our deepest condolences. He will be missed. Wednesday morning, January 11th, I attended the Parry Sound Public Library Board meeting in person, and we welcomed 2 new board members, Karen Walker and Alhan Rahimi. Is that right? Board elections were held. Mr. Tom Lundy will continue to sit as chair and Susan Murphy will continue as vice chair. And a lot of housekeeping, including our 2023 meeting schedule and budget, CEO reports, treasurer reports, and so on. Finally, because this is our first time since 2023 rolled in, I want to wish everybody, our mayor, fellow councilors, town staff, and the people of Parry Sound a very happy new year. Best wishes for health, happiness, and prosperity in your lives. And may we also pray for peace in the world and stay away from food poisoning. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks,
It ain't fun.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Councillor Boleski.
Thank you, your worship. Compared to some of the other councillors, I had a fairly quiet last couple of weeks. I did have a Zoom meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. I think it was pretty well business as usual, but they have a very aggressive future. They adding members and events that I believe are going to work very good for it. I attended the Mayor's Levy. I was very encouraged by your worship's words. Sounds like we have a very grateful, I guess the word to use, future coming up, and the Order of Parry Sound was very good. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashford.
Well, just to keep it short and sweet, it was a busy time, as everyone has kind of said, and as I'm kind of listening again to the different things that happen at the different meetings, the part that I wanted to share with the group was that even though sometimes we hear the negative, and sometimes even the negative's funny, the way that people see things, Parry Sound is being built by great, kind people. In addition to the other meetings that we've spoke of, I was lucky to, with Bonnie, go to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. and the kindness, the work people are doing and the things that are going on in our community. I really think we could just be the luckiest community in Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mayor, fellow councilors, staff and the public, of course, Happy New Year. And I will not be repetitive. I did also attend the levy that's been mentioned. And just to add to what Councillor Ashford has indicated, I too attended the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And we had a couple of new members, 2 new members, and we met at the Friends. So I think that was really important too, because it shows how important accessibility is. We're sending a message to everybody in the community, the importance of accessibility, diversity, and equity. And during that meeting, of course, there was the administrative stuff as usual, where you go through your terms of reference and your confidentiality, etc., but also in your roles. But we also spoke of Mission Park and the plan for this summer, and hopefully we will be having an opening once things are, shall we say, improved shipshape. There's been some good ideas being presented for that park, and the review of the accessibility plan, which will be presented and is on agenda tonight, also happens, so I will not elaborate on that. And we look forward to the next meeting in March, and hopefully everything goes well there. I also too want to express my condolences to Cliff Fagan's family, including Barb. I'm sure a marriage of that such a long term, 60 some years, certainly has an impact. I want to say that I found Cliff to be a very witty and rather controversial person. And it's the type of individual, not only would I like to be myself, but also it's one that I would keep in my memory, unless of course I lose my memory. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Keith. Council staff and public. January 8th, as was mentioned, was the New Year's levy. It was really nice to see a good turnout. Thank you to so many councillors for being there. This is also our opportunity to award someone with the Order of Parry Sound. And there were a number of past recipients on hand as well, which was good. And so the 2022 Order of Parry Sound went to Ellen Kunica. And there was a great recognition of Ellen's compassion and empathy expressed through her healing work. So it was really good. I'd like to thank our clerk, Rebecca Johnson, for all the work that she put into it and organizing it and trying to get everything done. And then to Jamie Young as well for work she did during the event. I'm hoping that everyone had a really good holiday, and I want to extend a thank you to our roads crew for all the extra effort that they had put in during the significant snow event and the cleanup afterwards as well. So very well done. January 16th, I met with Enbridge representatives. There was a donation made to our fire department for new and updated training material, which is absolutely great. Yes, Councillor Borneman just sent me a message about Family Day and the 20th, actually the 20th. And yes, we will be doing the barbecue and the free skate, and the it'll be between 11 and 1 o'clock on the Monday. And yeah, there'll be games upstairs and crafts, and they've got a bunch of stuff planned. So it'll all be at the Bobby Orr Community Center. Condolences as well to the family of Cliff Fagan. Flags were lowered to half-mast in recognition of his service. I had the opportunity to serve a term on council with Cliff, and certainly some other boards and committees. And the one thing with Cliff was, it was a matter of fact. The way he he just had a way of saying it and doing it. So yes. So in recognition of his service to the community, which was greatly appreciated. Finally, in closing, I truly hope that 2023 is a great year for everyone. There's a lot, as I mentioned in my update at the levy coming down the line, and I really hope that everything can work out and we can do the things that come forward. So that's my report. Thank you. Now, on with the agenda. So I moved up item 10.3.1, which actually has two parts. First one's moved by Councillor Ashford, seconded by Councillor Boleski. That bylaw number 2023-7309 being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 5 at 66 Warwick Street be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings. And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Boleski and second by Councillor Ashford that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. At this time, what I'd like is either our planner or consultants to give everyone a better understanding of what this particular bylaw is doing so that everyone's clear.
Good evening, Your
Welcome.
Worship and members of council. My name's Jamie Robinson. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning, and we've been retained by the town on this matter to review the application and its planning merits. And with me tonight's Alan Ferris, one of the associates in our firm. We do have a brief PowerPoint presentation, which we'll provide for you, just provides an overview of the application and a bit of a summary of it. Unfortunately, we don't have a video to go along with it tonight.
Darn. You'll have to talk to the people at the library behind you, and maybe they can work on something with you.
Make planning more exciting.
Perfect. So I've just done an introduction. Ellen's going to provide an overview of the application and some of the initial background, and then I'll provide an overview of the zoning amendment and the details related to that.
So overall, the purpose of tonight's council meeting is to consider the recommendation report, which was included in the agenda package. Just by way of a bit of background, the zoning bylaw amendment application for this file was submitted back in 2021. The public meeting for that zoning bylaw amendment was subsequently held in November 2021. Following that meeting, the applicant was advised that an official plan amendment was in fact required to further the application. That official plan amendment application was submitted this past summer in August 2022, and the public meeting for that official plan amendment was held in September 2022. Since that time, the applications have been processed and reviewed concurrently. So as it relates, I'm sure council is familiar with the site, is located at 66 Warwick Street, east of Baycrest Drive and west of Prospect Street. It's approximately 2.5 hectares in area. It's got an adjacent daycare facility along Warwick Street, and it's currently vacant. And there's a baseball diamond in the northwest corner of the property, and it's largely wooded. So the proposed development is to permit up to 90 residential units on the site, consisting of both townhouse and apartment style units. The applicant did provide a high-level conceptual site plan with their submission, which is what is displayed on the screen. In addition to the conceptual site plan that was provided, there were a number of technical reports included in the submission by the applicant, including planning justification report, conceptual servicing plan, traffic impact study, as well as a species at risk report. And further technical details have been confirmed with the applicant's consulting team through the review as well. So as it relates to the proposed official plan amendment, we note that the site is currently designated for residential uses in the town's official plan. There's currently 3 designations on the site. There's the residential high density designation on the lower portion of the site, the residential medium density designation in the northwest corner in the yellow, as well as the residential low density designation. So the effect of the proposed official plan amendment is to redesignate the entirety of the property to the residential high density designation, which would have the effect of permitting both townhouse and apartment style units. So I'll pass it back over to my colleague Jamie, who will walk us through the remainder of the proposal.
So just to add to what Ellen's provided so far, so that what the official plan amendment effectively, the official plan currently does establish the principle of residential uses in the site. So the zoning for the site is currently a mix of R1 and open space related to the existing uses there. But from an official plan perspective, and what an official plan, I'm sure most of you are aware, but it is the document that is a sort of a snapshot into the future of what you would envision your community to look like in the future. And it does provide for, and it's effectively a 20-year plan for that. And it does establish a residential designation for that land. Although there is, as Ellen mentioned, a mix of residential designations currently, medium, high, and low. And again, this proposal is to bring everything into the high density designation with respect to some limitations on that. And the limitations would be provided through the zoning. So specifically, the application proposes to establish a site-specific zone for the property. The site-specific zone would increase the interior side yard setback to 6 meters for the townhouse style of development. Currently 3 meters is what's permitted in the zoning bylaws. So there's an increase there. And then it would also restrict the maximum number of residential units on the site to 90. What that relates to in terms of density is about, I think it was 36 units per hectare, if memory serves me, where the high density zone permits in the magnitude of about 75 units per hectare. So for example, if I know there's a concern about in the future, if someone came in and potentially wanted to rezone the site for an alternative use in the future, if they wanted to add more than the 90 units that's proposed, as an additional zoning bylaw amendment with further public consultation and review by council would be required. Well, what's proposed is a maximum of 90 units through the site specific zoning for the site. And again, that equates to about 36 units per hectare, which is on the very low end of the high density designation. One of the, I'll call it checks and balances that is proposed with the zoning bylaw amendment would be the inclusion of a holding symbol. And what a holding symbol is it's effectively a tool that indicates somebody can't get a building permit to proceed with development on the site until certain criteria are met or certain parameters are undertaken. So in this, with respect to this application, the holding symbol would require a few different things. So firstly, a confirmation from Public Works that servicing capacity is appropriate. Now, on that note, the applicant has provided a study that identifies that currently servicing infrastructure in the town could support development of the magnitude that's proposed on the site. But however, at the specific time prior to a building permit being issued, they'd have to provide very specific details that capacity exists at that exact moment in time or at that point in time. So that's one thing related to servicing. Second item relates to an item that applies to the site plan agreement, which includes that a provision be included that ensures that the access function of the laneway that bisects the property be maintained. So there is an easement on the property or an access on the property that services other nearby properties. So what a requirement is that it's through the site planning process that either that specific laneway or access needs to be maintained, or they need to provide alternative access through other means. So what is likely to happen if there's a beneficial development concept that provides an appropriate density for the site, that access could be moved to follow the laneways or access ways of that future development concept for the site. So that is a matter that we believe is more of a site planning matter, or site design, as opposed to a principle of use issue, which is what we're dealing with tonight related to the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. The third item relates to a completion of a species at risk assessment for the entire property and the completion of a tree preservation plan. So the reason for those specific items being included as a requirement for the lifting of the holding symbol is, again, that until a specific site plan application is brought forward, we don't know specifically what areas of the site development would be or existing vegetation would be maintained, for example, and also which areas of the site would be proposed for development. It also means that at that time of an application for site plan, there could be different species that are identified as species at risk by the province, and that study would have to be undertaken at that specific time. So it makes sure that development proceeds on the site based on the legislation that's in effect at the time with respect to species at risk. And then it also requires the protection of that the identification of the tree preservation plan. So that would apply to trees along the perimeter of the site, and also areas of likely the western portion of the site or northwestern portion of the site where the hill's located. So what that study would do is identify trees to be protected. Typically, it does a health assessment of the trees and inventories them as well. So that's usually not something that's done at this stage when we're considering principle of use, but it is something that's done typically at site plan stage before any development occurs on the site. So we believe those holding symbols, the use of the zoning bylaw amendment that's proposed to council tonight, and the use of the holding symbol allows for the establishment of the principle of use, but also includes those checks and balances to appropriately address those technical issues related to servicing, related to the access, and related to the environmental considerations. In terms of comments, we've reviewed comments. Comments have been provided by Public Works. They identified those potential long-term servicing concerns. The holding symbol was included as a result of those comments. In terms of public comments, from the public meeting and then after the public meeting, there were a number of public comments received. There was comments received both in favor of the applications and both in opposition to the application. In terms of the comments received in favor of the applications, it supported the applications because it does provide the potential for additional housing to be created within the town site of Parry Sound, and does provide a variety of housing styles and opportunities. Concerns were identified by some residents with respect to traffic generation and parking. To that point, there was a supporting study prepared, a functional servicing report that did review traffic as well, and identified that from a traffic generation perspective, the 90 unit maximum that's included in the zoning bylaw amendment the existing road infrastructure could accommodate that amount of traffic. And as I mentioned previously, if somebody were to propose to increase the density beyond 90 units in the future, further study would be required to provide demonstration at that time that the existing infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, could support that density of development. Density was a concern that was identified with respect to the proposal and the increased density. The site does propose to move the official plan amendment, and does propose to move the site into the high density designation. The zoning bylaw amendment does propose to add a cap of 90 units, which is just over the 30 unit per hectare amount. Based on our review and based on the policies that are contained in your official plan, and specifically the policies that are outlined in section 3.1.110, which we believe to be the operative policy of the plan. We believe that the density of the site is appropriate for development within a settlement area. And I'll just take a moment to pause on that and provide a few comments related to your official plan, as well as that infill development generates a lot of comments often in any community that they occur in. And council's placed in a tough position to balance those comments that are received from the public and public concerns with the direction and the policy framework that's contained within your official plan. And your official plan does have a policy framework that supports infill and intensification within existing developed areas. So it does anticipate change within your existing communities, but it anticipates change that's appropriately balanced and considers the character of the existing area and is appropriately planned. So based on our review, the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment do have appropriate regard to those policies in your official plan that are the operative policies that guide growth and development and infill development in your community. Pedestrian safety was another comment that was raised with respect to the development. Pedestrian safety isn't specifically something that's addressed at the principle of use stage, which we're dealing with tonight, which is the zoning bylaw amendment, official plan amendment. It's something that's more closely looked at when through the site plan stage, and a site plan control application is required for this development. That's when we get into the specifics of pedestrian movements on the site and specific turning movements in and around the site when those detailed design items are considered. And staff would provide comments on those through the review of the site plan application. Infrastructure capacity was raised as a concern, and I think I've already addressed that in most respects, is that the applicant did provide a functional servicing report. It was reviewed by the municipality staff, and we've included the use of a holding symbol to deal with the specific future implications of servicing and infrastructure capacity. Stormwater management, similar comment to the previous comment. That is more of a site planning issue from a high level or principle of use perspective. The functional servicing report prepared by the applicant and reviewed by the staff did indicate that stormwater can be appropriately managed on site, but the specific details of that would be identified through the site plan process. That is a very sort of technical consideration and a professional or an engineering situation. Neighborhood character was identified as a concern, and again, we did describe in the planning reports the character of the area. There are a lot of single family homes or single detached dwellings in the area. There are some multi-unit developments in the proximity of the area. One thing about character of the area is that existing development defines the character of the area, but so does the existing planning permissions in the official plan and in the zoning bylaws. So the planning policies and the official plan do anticipate change, and they provide some specific criteria for changes within a community. And again, I'll point back to that sort of, I'll call it operative sections of the official plan, which is 3.1.1.10, which is reviewed in the planning report. So in our review of the application, the zoning amendment does not propose an increase in height. 10.5 meters is the maximum permitted height in the R3 zone, which is proposed. 10.3 meter or 10.5 meters is also the maximum permitted height in the adjacent R2 zone. So the existing development, surrounding development, it's the same height that's permitted on surrounding properties as the proposed property. So effectively 3 stories in height is what could be accomplished within that density of development. By providing a mix of townhomes and apartments, apartment dwellings, we believe that provides an appropriate transition in terms of scale and massing opportunities to be reviewed again through the site plan process in detail. But from a character perspective, there certainly are different unit types that are proposed here. However, we believe that it's not out of character with the existing community and with what the town's planning documents anticipate for infill developments within the town of Parry Sound. The next item relates to loss of green space. That is a consideration. However, if you recall the first image that was provided on the screen, that was again the official plan schedule for the town of Parry Sound. And that schedule contemplates that and establishes a principle of use of residential uses for this site. So the overall planned function for this area, in accordance with the town's official plan, is for residential uses. It's not for open space uses for the long term. By including a maximum density of 90 units on this in the zoning, we believe that provides an opportunity to provide for an appropriate balance of maintaining existing open space areas on the site and providing for those specific development areas as well on the site. So controlling that density through the zoning does provide an opportunity to maintain some green space on the site. And the conceptual plan provided by the applicants that was also shown in the presentation does identify that concept as well. I have provided in sort of an overview of this already in going through the last slide, but the town official plan does focus development to the urban area. It does establish the principle of residential use through the official plan for this site. The official plan does support the integration of a broad range of housing opportunities within the settlement areas. That's not to say that every housing style is appropriate in every location of the municipality, but it does support a range throughout. And we believe that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment does provide an appropriate range and scale of housing for this site. And again, it's our opinion that the proposal does conform to those infill and intensification development policies that I've referenced a couple times this evening. So our conclusions, your worship and members of council, is the site is designated for residential uses and for the long term. That the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment permitted density of development that is in keeping with the policy direction established through your official plan. The holding symbol is an appropriate tool that ensures further technical and environmental details are addressed through that site plan control process. And in conclusion, it's our opinion that the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment are consistent with the provincial policy statement and do conform with the town's official plan and our good land use planning and represents good land use planning. So with that, your worship, sorry if we were a little long-winded, but I know it's an important issue for the town from all aspects. There's positives and benefits from all sides. So if there's any questions of council, we can do our best to try to answer those for you this evening.
I think the first one is to clarify between the two bylaws that we have in front of us. So the first one is the adopt the official plan amendment, and then the second one is to amend bylaw 2004. So that's the zoning bylaw. And then this is the actual official plan amendment.
Yes, your worship, there's two documents that's before council. The first is an official plan amendment. So as I mentioned for the new councilors, the official plan is a policy document. It sets the stage, it sets the vision. So that document is the one that currently identifies the official plan. In the official plan, this property is being low density. Actually, I'll just flip back to it so you can see it. That's the official plan. So it proposes low density, or currently the white's low density, the yellow is medium density, and the red hatching at the bottom is high density. It proposes the entire site to basically have that red hatching over it. So propose it all to go to the high density designation. So that's the first thing before council. The second is related to the zoning bylaw amendment. And what a zoning bylaw is, for those new members of council, is it's the document that specifically says what you can and can't do for your property. That's the document that if someone's proposing a building on a property, That's the document that the building official and the planning department look at to determine if your use is permitted or if the building complies with the development standards. So that's the two different documents that are before.
That's the
council.
one that has the holding sim designation and what can, yes. that
So
you talked about.
yes, the zoning bylaw contains the specifics about the maximum density and the setback for the side interior side yard and the holding symbol that is applied to.
Okay. Well, you know, I want to thank you for your presentation and everything. I know there's questions that are up too, and I know I was Mr. Rand, our planner, I had asked him a couple of questions as to what would happen if this was turned down and the process that would be followed with that. And where we would end up going through the process after that. And I don't know whether, Mr. Rand, you want to,
I can speak to that.
you can speak to that
Sir.
as well? Okay, that's fine. Because I know there is a process and my fear is, well, we could lose everything through that process. The province could just say, no, we don't accept this. We want to go even further than what it is. So I'll let you talk.
Certainly, your worship. So there's basically three options council has. They can approve, they can defer, or they can deny the application. It's the fourth option would be they could approve a bylaw that's different than the one that's before you tonight. You can make modifications to the bylaw and approve that bylaw. If you were to approve the bylaw, there is an opportunity for other individuals that have provided comments to appeal the application. If you were to defer the application or the bylaws that are before you, then you should be deferring it on the basis that staff needs to go back and provide additional research or material on a specific matter. There should be something specific that's identified. If you were to deny the application, then a notice of decision gets sent out to the applicant, and the applicant has the ability to appeal if they so choose to the Ontario Lands Tribunal, which is the body that deals with those applications. Once an appeal is received, whether it's an approval or denial, when an appeal is received, what happens is a municipal submission package is prepared by the municipality and the planning department and the clerk, which then sends off all the material that was provided in support and against the application, and all the notices and all the background information gets sent off to the tribunal. If they believe it's a valid appeal, then they'll start a process, they'll open a file and likely schedule what's called a case management conference and then a hearing. So leading up to a hearing, if there's an appeal, basically the decision-making power then rests with the tribunal. If parties want, they can try to mediate in advance of a hearing. They can try to settle in advance of the hearing. Settlement usually results in concessions from both sides. That's typically what a settlement entails. But once it gets to a hearing, it's effectively a hearing de novo. So it's basically new information gets provided. The hearing is based on the application that was provided. So the application that was provided was for 90 units. It was for the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment to permit that 90 unit development. Is there a concern that if it's denied, that the applicant may try for additional units when it gets to the tribunal? That's not something that I would anticipate would happen. If they were to propose additional units to the tribunal, certainly they'd have to provide supporting studies that demonstrated more than 90 units were appropriate, and that's not what they've done to date. And if they were to do that, hearings aren't hearings by ambush by any means. All the material has to be provided up front to both parties. So the town would certainly be made aware of that and could object if that was the case. But they're not hearings aren't supposed to be a gotcha moment. They're supposed to be all the good facts and materials are out there for everybody at the outset. So both parties or all parties can prepare equally. at the end, it's about trying to get the best land use decision for the public interest is what it's about. So
Okay.
hopefully that helps. I don't know.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, question, Councillor McCann.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I want to thank our consultants and staff, because I know they worked really hard on this and this is a tough one. I think in my time in council, this has been the most difficult one to come to some conclusion. Mr. Mayor, you did beat me to the question about what was the difference between bylaw 7309 and 7310. I understand that. It was explained to me today why not accepting the 7309 or passing on the amendment of the official plan. If we said no to that, does that mute 7310 then? My understanding is it's because there's a ball field there that the open space was there because of the former ball field, and is the change in the official plan to rectify that?
To your worship, to the councillor, in terms of the if you were to deny the official plan amendment, then yes, the zoning bylaw amendment is contingent on the official plan amendment being approved. So the official plan amendment does a couple of things, but we believe the density of development at 90 units has to fall within the high density category. It's not appropriate in the low and the medium categories. It doesn't conform to the official plan. So in order to have that 90 unit density in the zoning bylaw, the official plan amendment has to be passed, or would have to be passed.
Okay, so everything that you've said and everything that staff has said, I mean, on paper, it's perfect. It obliges planning policies and whatnot, and the province certainly wants to see that infill. I've never really accepted the fact that this was a good location for this project. I can't argue policy because it's in place and it's black and white. But what my concerns are a couple of concerns. There's too many what ifs. If DSAB finds that it can't go ahead and build and it decides to sell the property afterwards, and another developer comes along and suddenly asks for 200 units, there's too much. I just feel there's so much at risk, and yet we as a council, I feel like we're backed into a corner here. We're not going to win one way or the other here. We're told that we can do what we decide what we want, but we really can't, given the risk factors that are attached to this. So I guess my elongated question is, what happens if DSAB doesn't develop this property and they end up selling it back to to another developer who comes back with more requests for a higher density and fewer setbacks, etc. I fear for that. Unless the town would have some sort of first right of refusal on buying the land back, I suppose.
To your worship, in terms of back through to the councillor, the if DSAB or if a future owner of the property, if it was ever sold, wanted to increase the density beyond what's identified, or modify a setback or increase a height or do any other change to the zoning bylaw, they would have to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment. They'd be put through the full requirements of that process, which includes statutory public meeting, staff review, circulation, and a subsequent decision by council. So I can't presuppose what may or may not happen.
That's my point. We don't know.
But they would be put through the same process that has been undergone today, including site plan control at the end of the day.
And so if we said no to the future developer, are we faced with the same provincial order that says infill, and we're right back to where we started again?
To your worship, if an application were submitted in the future for this property, it would be subject to the policy regime in effect at that time. So whatever, if the municipality had updated their official plan between now and then to make changes to the policy framework to add different criteria or different requirements for infill development, it would be subject to those specific policies. So, for example, if there was concern, or if this is, if this infill development causes potential areas of concern for future infill developments in the town of Parry Sound, then maybe the town might want to look at an official plan amendment in the near future that provides some additional criteria and provides some additional items for reviewing infill developments. So those are things that could change and future applications would be subject to.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let somebody else speak now.
Counselor Bileski.
This is actually not a question. I'd like to make a motion this time.
Oh, your microphone.
I'd like to make a motion at this time through you, your worship, to separate approximately 1/3 of the property at the tree line, the southern end of it, from this zoning bylaw, so it doesn't get included in it. And the remaining property would still be the maximum of the piece that's left, would still have the maximum of 75 per units per acre. This would also keep it in the 40% zoning bylaw. The southern portion would then possibly later on have a rezoning to open space. Leave the tree line where it is, don't include it tonight, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I think comments from from you folks. That's
Your
a change.
worship.
That's a change, significant change.
It's a motion that a counselor is allowed to put on the table.
Yeah, we don't have a seconder yet, and I want something from you, if we can, because he is asking a question as well.
Yes, I am, yeah.
I just,
Do you have a comment
can I
on
maybe
that?
just make sure I'm clear, is what you're proposing is that the official plan, the high density designation and the zoning that's proposed only apply to the area that's, I think you referred to outside of the tree line, or I guess.
Yes, I've kind of drawn a little bit of a line behind the rear building. I have a bunch of questions yet, but what I wanted to do tonight was separate this from it, leave it as more or less open space. Some of it now is high density. And leave this as open space and discuss from the back of the southerly building north and keep the discussion for that within that area.
So the portion of the site closest to Wabeek Street.
The portion of this like closest to Wabeek Street. Yes, that's what I'd like to do.
And applying the zoning and designation just to that portion and leaving the rest.
That's correct.
But you're also suggesting then that the density would increase to 70 units per hectare.
Oh, that's what it calls for now, and it's under it. I'm sorry,
It's only, what, 40?
yeah, but this would still keep it within the 75 units per hectare. It doesn't really change anything on the existing conceptual map that you have here. I'm not asking that anything be changed there at all. Everything that's exception of a couple of things I can bring up later, but everything that's put on the conceptual drawing now would still be subject to the same conditions. There's no changes at all other than we're removing the tree line. We're removing from the tree line down to, well, now it's got some high density in it, but I would like to see it eventually change to a open space, open concept, open space. I can send this over to you if it helps at all, or would you like to see it, your worship?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm discussing back and forth straight. It shouldn't be.
Well, it throws a new concept into what we've had brought forward, which is a change, and I'd like something from them to say, does that work?
Again, your worship.
So
we
maybe
can't
I
just
could-
make it easy. know, I say we're not here to really make it easy. We're here to do what's best for the
Well,
town.
that's why the H symbol and everything that went in there
I
was
question. You better go,
was-
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
to try and bring around some protection. So, yes,
So through your worship, or to your worship. There's one thing I've learned in 20 years of doing this, that drafting things on the fly is not a good way to do it. So if this is something that that council wants to explore, then I'd recommend you defer tonight and you come back with a revision at a future meeting.
Yeah.
If this, so I think if that's a motion that the counselor wants to bring forward, you can vote on whether you want to consider that modification, but
so what I would like to hear, because I want to make sure that we discuss a number of things tonight, I don't mind deferring it, okay, to get that information. But I want to hear everything that's on the table or whatever, and what everybody's thinking. And then we can put something together at the end that gives you direction to investigate whatever it ends up being, okay? Because we can't keep coming back every meeting and doing this, because it's going to look ridiculous after a while. So Councillor Boleski has, put that out there. Let's listen to the rest of his questions, and then if there's any others have any questions and any new conceptual sort of things that live within what the proponent is asking for in their application, then you have got something to work with.
Yep.
Okay, make sense, everybody? Okay, so.
Through
Councillor
your
Gillespie,
worship,
you've got.
my only problem with that is my questions then, do they affect the northern portion? Do they affect the southern portion, or do they affect the whole portion? What am I talking about? I guess that's my question.
That's why I agree with the consultants, and that is that we put the stuff out there and we don't fly by the seat of our pants. And we make sure that we get the appropriate answers back, and they're able to look at this to make sure that we're not going on the fly here and causing a further problem later on.
Yes, your worship. Okay.
Okay.
Understand. I just don't really want it to take up all of council's time on it.
Do you
but
want to know
I do-
something?
I do
That's
have-
what we're here for.
I do have. a few
So,
questions.
so you ask your questions.
I guess, number one, if the serviceability is met. And this would be through staff, will there be an impact on any buildings? That are in the queue that falls within the proper zoning? Is there some proper zoning? Going on now that going to need this service? Are we cutting some service from other people?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm treading into Mr. Kern's territory here, but I'm pretty confident I know the answers. In that servicing is always a snapshot in time. So many things are occurring. There's developments occurring all over the community at the same time, which affect the ability of us to service any of them. There are a number of applications in the planning processes. And there are also a number of improvements that are occurring to our infrastructure at any given time. Mr. Kearns has talked to council before about inflow and infiltration and gains that can be made in those areas. We also know of where we have some shortcomings within our infrastructure that we are addressing, and we've identified those to you before, and we will also be identifying more when it comes time for budget this year. So when it comes to servicing, it is always a snapshot in time. And the answer would be yes, any development that's approved does affect other developments. All that being said, servicing capacity is allocated in our community at the time of building permit issuance. So no one is guaranteed capacity until such a time as they pull a building permit. And if there was a line in the sand of this one building permit was going to end the allocations, then the one that came after that would not be able to go forward.
So, just so I understand your worship, if this was approved and they're going to receive the allocation, and there's an area within the town that is property zoned, and the person wants to come forward and start building on it, if we run to the end of our capacity, he's not going to get it.
That's one of the provisions that's actually in it, that they have to conform to a servicing ability at that particular time. So Chief Thompson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're not quite there yet. There is enough property zoned residential within the town of Parry Sound to blow away our capacity today. We don't have nearly enough capacity to service all the land that is currently zoned within the town of Parry Sound. Now, there's no expectation that all the land that's already zoned residential will ever be built upon and will be required to be serviced. So capacity is allocated again at the time of building permit, not at the time of OPAs or zoning bylaw amendments, at building permit. So when someone comes into our chief building official and provides a complete building permit application, that is when that capacity is allocated. So this particular development, if it were to move forward, would not get allocation until such time as they came in with building permits to the building department.
Okay, thank you, your worship. I guess in that point, it's first come, first served is what he's saying.
Yep.
And again, I could go through the chief again, the water main in front of the building, or in front of the project. Is it sized enough for fire protection? Are we going to have to put a bigger water main in?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, treading on Mr. Kern's territory, that water main in front of that particular development is the largest water main within the community because it feeds from the water plant to the rest of the community. There is by far lots of capacity within that water main.
Great, thank you, your worship. There are a few things here that I'd be into later. Where will the snow be placed? The traffic study, could I ask the traffic study through the consultants? The movement numbers, I couldn't find it in the actual numbers.
Your worship, the counselor, I don't have the specific traffic study movement numbers at my fingertips, but a review was undertaken of the traffic study. And it did indicate that sufficient capacity was available within the existing transportation network to accommodate the 90 units that the maximum 90 units that the zoning sought. So I don't have those numbers specifically at my fingertips, but the review was undertaken.
Through you, your worship, I understand that, but saying that the road is capable of handling the additional traffic. Let's say that the existing traffic that's coming now, that's on the movements on the road now. When we add these 90 units to it, it's actually doubling the amount of traffic that's going to be on that road. It's still within the confines of the road handling it. But my concern was the numbers. If I'm going to say, and I'm not a traffic expert, but I'm going to say is we've got 90 units. Let's say that 45 of those units move every day. That's 90 movements, right? Half and half, they got to come back if they go out, hopefully. But if we have 90 now, then really what we've done is doubled the, if there's an existing 90 movements a day now, what we've done is doubled the traffic on that road. Even though the road's quite capable of handling them, we have doubled it. So that was one of my questions. Okay. And the traffic study was done in September of 21 and January of 23. I would suggest that traffic study should probably be done in Parry Sound in the June or July, sometime in there. I know trying to get off my street out onto Bow Street in January or September is a lot different than trying to get out of it in June or July. The building height says that in their response, it says the maximum building height of 3 stories is not a significant department from the existing low density developments. The concept plan I got shows a 4-story. Out of 3.
So in terms of typically a 10.5, your worship, typically a 10.5 meter building is 3 stories. I don't know if you can fit 4 stories in that, but the zoning bylaw that's in front of council is a maximum 10.5 meters. Which
Thank
is
you.
this-
I just, I seen that it showed it as 4 stories, that's all.
That concept that the DSAB had is not necessarily,
I just didn't want it to come
It's
back
not
and
written
bite
in
us, your
stone.
worship, and say, no, we identified it
No,
for.
what will be in the actual bylaw and what we're doing is only 3 stories. That's the maximum.
Another comment, I guess a comment, not so much a question. It says in section 3.1.1.10 of our planning act, says compatibility with existing neighborhood character in terms of scale, massing, height, sighting, setbacks, parking, and indemnity areas, so that a transition between existing and proposed building is provided. I'm not sure that this falls within those, I did section E, community services and other neighborhood conveniences are accessible. I did some measurements. The closest school is 1 kilometer away. A convenience store and a fast food outlet is 1.1 kilometer. A hardware store is 1.5. And grocery, gas and mall is 2 kilometers away. So it's not really close to the conveniences of the rest of the town. And I'm asking, could the bylaw be deferred until all the issues are addressed? What happens if the property is rezoned with a hole and some of the issues can't be met later? Met to the letter. Is the town under a position where it needs to be a little bit softer on some of these decisions? Now, it's a minor sort of a thing. Very minor, but come on, guys, let it go. We've got everything else done but that. I'm just scared that it puts the town maybe to be a little softer. And I guess we keep referring to site plan. Site plan is the responsibility of the staff. They approve the site plans. That's the way we are right now. That's putting a lot of pressure on the town staff to approve a site plan that could possibly be a political decision. And that's it, your worship.
Okay, thank you. So are you taking notes? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, I've made a couple notes, but we'll compare after and we'll. Councillor Ashford.
I would like to make a parliamentary inquiry, if that is reasonable to you. Is it appropriate? I believe we've asked Councillor Bileski to hold off on his motion. Is it appropriate for me to ask a clarification question about his motion at this time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Councillor, I was just wondering, is what you're saying that the remaining amount of the property could still fit 90 units as they're asking for?
Through you, your worship, yes, as I said, on the remaining part of the part that I'm asking to be taken apart is the tree land, and I'm leaving the rest the same. Nothing changes at all. Absolutely nothing on this plan changes, other than the fact that the trees are removed from it.
The trees aren't removed.
I beg your pardon?
The trees are removed from consideration.
The
trees are removed from
From the
consideration.
consideration, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
The trees stay.
The trees, definitely the trees stay, yes.
Okay, was that? You're good?
I have further questions.
Okay, go
Is that
ahead.
okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Another thing that Councillor Bileski had brought up that I was wondering, when we talked about the character of the community, all of our residential zones include a height of 10.5 meters. But in this case, the actual development that's there is rarely 10.5 meters, to the point where I without driving it again today, I don't think I can think of one that's that high. Why would you recommend it to be that high when perhaps you could have recommended it to be 8 meters or something that would be appropriate to the rest of the character of the neighborhood?
Through your worship to the councillor, in terms of the height, in terms of what's proposed in the amendment, it's an applicant driven process from that perspective. So they make an application for what they'd like to do, which was the 90 units. They didn't propose to amend the height. We did make a recommendation that they increase the side yard setback to sit from 3 meters to 6 meters to provide some additional opportunity for separation distances from the neighboring properties. But from a height perspective, it was our opinion that there was no need to provide an additional reduction in height. And from our perspective, even if the neighboring, from my perspective, even if the neighboring development maximum was 2 stories and this allows 3, that's not a significant change, and that's appropriate, an appropriate difference between a low density and a medium or high density property. So we were comfortable with that.
Thank you, through your worship.
Okay.
Additionally, I was happy to see that the zoning bylaw included a couple of provisions for environmental study and for a tree plan. Excuse my ignorance on it, but I was wondering who exactly would do the study? What kind of criteria does that profession have? And as far as the trees and those kind of things go, for both of those things, is what kind of standards are set currently? I know in the future they may be different, but what kind of standards are set currently? And just kind of anecdotally, I cut my wife's hosta down with the lawnmower. It was very valuable to her. I did not see any value myself. I now know I'm mistaken in that, but at the end of that, it kind of articulates that perhaps something that's valuable to one might not be valuable to the other. And in the tree study, it seems like it might just be what is valuable to the developer at the time.
To your worship, to the counselor, if you need any help with hostas, I can split a few and bring them over. But as far as it relates to professionals that undertake those studies, professional arborists would be required to undertake tree preservation plan. As far as a species at risk assessment, a professional ecologist that has specialization in species at risk work would be required to undertake that updated study. And in terms of the town does have the opportunity to peer review that work. So since we don't have an expert on staff, or we aren't experts either, typically we would hire somebody to do a peer review of that tree preservation plan, and to ensure that best management practices have been employed and that they've captured what they were supposed to capture in that process.
And then finally, through your worship, the other part that I didn't have access to was the land subject to right of way. Can you speak more to the nature of it? Is it something that's surveyed and set out on the property? Is it a general note in the deed? How exactly does that kind of play out as far as the land in that accesses the back properties?
I'm going to defer to Ellen on this one because she was in the weeds on it.
I'll endeavor to answer it. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ashford, but it's our understanding that it is an existing legal agreement that the town has with those property owners to provide access to the rear of their properties. It is noted on the survey. So it's our understanding that there is kind of an existing legal agreement there to continue to provide access. I'm not sure of any further details, but I think that's our
Good.
understanding.
Okay. Councilor McCann.
So 2 questions. First of all, one for if we can go back to Councillor Boleski, or maybe to our consultant, the part that you were asking about sort of dissecting or cutting off, was there any development plan for that area that you wanted to segregate, or is this the intent was to just protect that from future development, that green space? Okay. Okay, so. Okay. So this might be more of a comment than anything else. So I read the letter from the chair of DSAB to the people living in the area there. And in terms of what they were doing to try to convince people that they weren't the devil here, that they were trying to come up with the best solution that would fit. I'm certainly not against housing. We need all types of it, and there are many, many people out there who are less fortunate, who find themselves through no fault of their own in a situation where housing just doesn't exist for them. So they need the housing. In terms of getting back to this letter, I sense that the province in building more homes, I'm going to say at any cost, is a province-wide initiative. Is DSAB looking to solve the housing crises here, or is this part and parcel with the whole province? And the reason I ask that is because with these kind of units, anybody in the province can apply for housing, and we can't deny them that. So I guess if we're trying to solve our own housing problem here, and if there's a fair percentage of the tenants are moving into the area to live in there, how does that help our current population? Is it, you see where I'm getting at?
I'm not sure we can comment. I think what you're getting on is DSAB's motivation to develop or to rezone, and I can't speak towards what their motivation is, other than they've submitted a planning act. Like, as a planner, I can comment that they submitted a planning act application to increase the density of the site to allow for a specific type of units to be constructed there, and that could have an impact and positively impact the variety of housing, mix of housing, and potentially affordability of housing in the area. But I can't speak to their motivation at all.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to ask, does anyone else have any other considerations that they'd like the planners to take a look at while this is deferred, so that when we come back, maybe we have a better concept of, or some other concepts on how this can be looked at? Well, I'm asking the question first, if there's anyone else that has anything else that they want considered by the planners. Councillor Ashford.
If presented, I would motion that at the very least, the height would be reduced in the zoning bylaw to something more that equates more with 2 stories. And perhaps a survey of the buildings in the area. If we were to consider the bylaw today, that would be a motion that I would perhaps put forward to modify what's currently here.
So I think in that particular case, the planners could take a look at the actual height and what the zoning allows for height around that particular area, because we could be in, if we restrict the height and the height is the same in the other areas under that appropriate zoning, then there may be an issue. Okay, we could be challenged on that. So I'd like to know that aspect of it as well. Okay, because we've got to watch what we do, right? So Councillor Borneman, then Councillor Valesky.
Well, I'd only say to Councillor Ashford, if you restrict the height, you probably enlarge the footprint of the building to get the 90 units. And if we're at the end of the day trying to protect green space and trees, which we should be, you can't have it both ways, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Councillor Valesky.
Your worship, I will comment that I would withdraw that motion if you not a vote on the ground.
Well, we're gonna defer it. Okay, so I'll ask for a deferral, but I want to make sure that everything that everybody's thinking about at the moment, okay, that we come back with all those answers or whatever at the next meeting, so we have them here and we're more knowledgeable on when we left this meeting. So yes, Chief Thompson.
To you, Mr. Mayor, listening to the discussion, and I was able to see Councillor Valesky's paper that he was referring to. And just before you do a deferment, we're not going to be able to speak on it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up the point that the map, the conceptual drawing that Mr. or Councillor Valesky had in his hand, it was identifying the tree line that was shown on the conceptual drawing. I do want to bring to everyone's attention that I don't believe that's the same
It's not.
tree line
No.
as is on the property currently.
You're
So I just
correct.
wanted to make sure that what we're hearing Councillor Valesky say is the tree line that's shown on the conceptual drawing.
Yes,
If there's something different than that, we need to know that now.
that's a fair enough question. Yes.
Your worship, yes, I understand. I just use the word tree line as more or less and it identified an area. The line that I had drawn is actually a hill. I was just using tree line as a, rather than a line, but as an area.
Okay. All right. Councillor Ashford.
I apologize, your worship. Can I make another parliamentary inquiry at this point? Can we motion to accept the changes? And then if it is unsuccessful, can we motion then to defer it? Or is it,
No.
yes, okay. So is there any way to survey the room on if this would pass before we defer it?
I don't think we should do that.
Okay,
I think that what we should do is we should gather the information. And the reason I'm not deferring it or asking for deferral yet is so we can have discussion. Because just as Chief Thompson said, once we go to deferral and that sort of thing, discussion ends. So that's why I'm asking if there was anything else you want the consultants to take a look at before I call for a motion for deferral. No? Okay, may I have a mover and seconder for deferral the motion? Councillor McCann, Councillor Valesky, and it's deferred. How long do you think it would take to put together the information? Next meeting, February 7th or something later?
Your worship, we can try for February 7th. We'll talk to staff. We'll talk to the applicant. I know that's going to be tough on our end.
Are we better for the second meeting in February?
I would appreciate that
21st.
only because I have hearings the next 3 days and then potentially hearings for,
Okay,
depending on what happens.
all right.
Anyways, I would
No,
appreciate that.
I think second meeting in February, 21st, you said? Yes, 21st, okay. All right, all in favor of deferring?
Train right on cue.
And that's carried. Okay, thank you. Hey, so I guess we'll take those two right off the table.
Yeah.
All right, on with the agenda. Thank you very much. Again, this is a very contentious, as you know, or, that the community is very involved in this. And I appreciate the work you're doing on it. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Moved by Councillor McCann. Oh, no. Yeah, McDonald, sorry. And seconded by Councillor Borneman. Whereas Council for the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound approves resolutions 2014-030 and 2014-228, approving signing authority to members of council and certain members of staff. And whereas changes in staff and changes in members of council resulting from municipal elections have been incorporated in succeeding amending resolutions. And whereas there was a municipal election on October 2022, resulting in further changes to members of council. And whereas there are no changes to the position or authority levels at this time, now therefore council approves that any one of the following elected officials, Mayor Jamie McGarvey, Councilors George Ashford, Joe Valesky, Paul Borneman, Bonnie Keith, Doug McCann, Chris McDonald, and any one of the following appointed official, Chief Administrative Officer Clayton Harris, Director of Finance Treasurer Stephanie Phillips, Manager of Revenue and Taxation Rob Beaumont are hereby authorized for and in the name of the corporation from time to time to give instructions, verifications, and approvals until further notice discussion, oh God. Oh, sorry. Scotia Bank. I think I need a drink of water. Oh, that's better. To draw, accept, sign, make, endorse, negotiate, and dispose of all or any bills of exchange, promissory notes, checks, and orders for payment of money, and two, to pay and receive all monies and give acquittances, sorry, for the same, and three, to borrow money, whether by way of overdraft or otherwise, howsoever, mortgage, pledge, hypothecate, assign, deliver, and or give to the same bank as security for the monies borrowed or to be borrowed, all or on any of present or future property and assets of the corporation of every kind, and whether real or personal, movable or immovable, and four, to receive from said bank any negotiable instruments or other property and assets of the corporation of every kind and give receipts thereof, and five, to execute any agreement with or authority to the bank relating to the banking business of the corporation, either generally or with regard to any particular transaction. And six, to transact generally with the said bank any business that may see fit. And seven, to rent safety deposit boxes and have access thereto, and to surrender the same, and the resolutions 2014-030, 2014-228, 2018-026, 2018-140, and 2019-053. Any other resolutions, appointments not in compliance with this resolution are hereby revoked. Counselor McCann.
Could you
I think
repeat?
it's, yeah, right.
Actually, I do have a question if it's appropriate at this point in time. So, so existing counselors, do we need to put ourselves through that process, or are we on the books as such?
Ms. Phillips.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So really the resolution is adding any newly appointed council members. So existing councilors were already authorized as signing authorities through resolutions that existed before tonight, if they're revoked.
Okay, well, I figured that was the case as in the previous terms. So my question is that I wondered if I could, my account, my name, the bank fob, none of it worked. And so I'd like to purge all that and start over again if I can come in and do that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I think what we'll do is I'll reach out to individual counselors and we're going to set that up in a new way, not using the bank fobs, but we have better ways for you to log in and perform those approvals. So on an individual basis, we'll reach out to you and show you how you can access the bank account and
Great. Okay, thank you.
complete that. You're welcome.
Anything else? All in favor? No, it's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Borneman, that council hereby receives for information purposes the report on staff comments to be provided to FNOM regarding the Nord funding program. Discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Borneman. Council hereby approves consent application B23-01 at 37 Joseph Street in order to facilitate an easement right of way in favor of the adjacent parcel to the east, subject to the conditions outlined in Schedule A, and that resolution 2022-158 approving consent application B22-15 is hereby revoked. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Nope. Oh, yeah. Moved by Councillor Bolesky and seconded by Councillor Ashford, that council hereby receives the information purposes, the January 17th, for information purposes, January 17th, 2023 report on backyard hand program. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Right, moved by Councillor Ashford and seconded by Councillor Keith, that the information with respect to the town's delegations at the 2023 Roma Conference be received for information purposes. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Ashford, that council approve the 2022 fourth quarter progress report on the town's key performance objectives, KPOs, as set out in Schedule A. Any discussion? Councillor Ashford.
For my clarification, this is a process that's already started. So the key objectives are set and we'll review them quarterly.
Yep.
And is there a point where the objectives, like what is the point that the objectives are reset at the end of the strategic plan? Or, sorry, go ahead.
We'll let Mr. Harris explain.
Through the mayor to Councillor Ashford, the strategic plan is set at the beginning or reviewed, and maybe it changed a lot, maybe changed a little at the beginning of each term of council. I have been in touch with a consultant about updating the strategic plan and asked them for a proposal. So the idea would be if council wants to update the plan, I think it's certainly at a minimum, we want to review it. Probably have some discussion with community groups, business and residents. Out of that process, if there's some tweaking, amending, changes to this plan, then we'd update this report, because this report is, a report to the council and the public on how well we're doing in achieving those strategic objectives. And then throughout the year, once the plan is set, you'll notice in the current plan, we added the MZO. That was a very important, I'd say, strategic issue we had to deal with. So it was added in the middle of the term, and dealing with COVID-19 was also a big issue. It was big enough that we needed to track it and report to council and the public. So there's opportunities, if they're big enough, we can add it throughout the year without amending the strategic plan. But generally it's update the strategic plan, update our goals and objectives, and keep moving forward.
And this is all on the website as well, so the public is aware of everything. Yeah.
If I could make one comment, one of the statistics I found very interesting. We've talked about housing and, everyday housing, and the lack of housing is always, it comes up in every conversation. And if you look on the very last page, one of the things that we track is the new residential units created, or at least building permits issued. So the Lighthouse development, for example, would be one building permit, but 70 residential units. So in terms of residential units, and we started tracking this in 2020, there were 16 permits for 16 residential units approved. Might be one permit, might be two, but 16 residential units. 2021, 80. And at the end of 2022, 104. So there's lots of work being done, working with the development industry, even things that the town itself are doing to enable residential units to be created. And so last year, 104 units, building permits were issued that total support 104 residential units. That's pretty good for a community of our size. And as you can see, it's improving dramatically over the last few years. So a lot of effort in that regard.
Yes, go ahead.
So that if I'm understanding you correctly, that explains why 104 to the 66. Okay.
We went through the chair. We went through that this afternoon as I was getting ready to make some comments. And this tracks units, which I think is appropriate to track. We're gonna change we're gonna just change or put a footnote so people understand it's not building permits, it's units. And that's really the bottom line, what we were interested in.
Okay. Yeah, good. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Ashford. Council adopts the updated accessibility plan 2021-2025 attached to Schedule A. Are there any comments from accessibility about the update for the new plan? Okay. Councillor McCann, then Councillor Keith.
Well, I was just going to say, she has been sitting here so patiently all evening long. I think we should just give her a chance to step into the spotlight and do your thing.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this accessibility plan that we are bringing forward, we've only made slight amendments. It was our committee was established in 2020, but due to COVID, unfortunately, staffing changes. And we do have new members now on our committee. We didn't get it approved by senior leadership team, and we needed it approved by council. Senior leadership team has reviewed it. Our new committee members, as well as existing, have reviewed it, and this is just the final presentation.
Good, thank you. Okay. Any further comments, questions? No? Councilor McCann?
Excuse my lack of knowledge on this, and I may be speaking out of turn, but I know from driving for community support services, this is all about accessibility for people who are challenged in various ways. There's still a lot of businesses in town that don't have proper ramps, or they're located in a really funny way. I'm thinking of one spot where I was today. There's an on-ramp onto the sidewalk, and right next to it is a handicap parking spot. But once somebody's parked there, you can't make use of the ramp that goes up. So there's a lot of anomalies in a lot of places around the area that still need some help. So at some point, is there, through the Ontario accessibility, is there any legislation that comes down at some point where that needs to be enhanced or improved or fixed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, existing facilities, they are to make every reasonable effort to make their establishment accessible, but it's not until a new structure is built that the building code would take over and has those new measurements in place.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're good. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add a note too, there are a lot of places in town that have gone out of their way to make their places accessible. So I didn't want to make it sound like I was sweeping the town with one broom.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor McDonald, whereas International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation is an opportunity to honor everyone, including women, girls, boys, men, and gender diverse people, who is actively and courageously working towards an end to this harmful practice. And whereas 4.1 million girls are still at risk of mutilation each year, including girls in Canada, and whereas female genitalia mutilation, FGM, is an issue in more than 90 countries on every continent except Antarctica, and there are at least 200 million FGM survivors in the world, including an estimated 100,000 survivors in Canada. And whereas FGM has no benefits and causes only harm, including death, difficulties with urination, menstruation, and sexual intimacy, post-traumatic stress disorder, gender dysphoria, and body dysmorphia, and increased maternal and child mortality, and is recognized by the United Nations and other global organizations as child abuse and an abuse of a girl's fundamental human rights. And whereas International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genitalia Mutilation is an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate all national and international efforts, especially grassroots efforts, to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 5, which calls for the elimination of FGM and other harmful practices by 2030. And whereas the town of Parry Sound supports the human rights of women and girls so they can live a life free from the violence that is female genital mutilation. We do proclaim and declare that February 6th, 2023 shall be known as International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genitalia Mutilation. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Borneman, that bylaw number 2023-7307, being a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing to meet the current expenditures of the town of Parry Sound until taxes are collected and other revenues are received, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councilor Borneman, second by Councilor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councilor McCann?
It's very quickly for Ms. Phillips. Didn't we do this a couple of meetings ago?
We do it every year. No, that was a different one. But we do this every year for,
Okay. So what is this one?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So due to the nature of property taxes being collected through installment payments, typically municipalities authorize a bylaw like this each year just in case the need arises. So every year, this bylaw comes forward to council to maintain the town's credit facilities. But we don't anticipate that the town will need to use or access the credit line within 2023, only if there was some event that was unexpected that happened.
I'll remember this for next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor McDonald. That bylaw number 2023-7308, being a bylaw to adopt an accounts payable and payments policy, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Two. Moved by Councilor Keith and second by Councilor Ashford, that bylaw number 2023-7311, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councilor Keith and seconded by Councilor Ashford. The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next meeting of council of the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, February 7th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the town of Parry Sound Council Chambers at 52 Seguin Street, entrance via Gibson Street, and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca and use the search bar. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting, and for Cogeco listings, contact Your TV at www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and wishing everyone the best in 2023. Good night.